However, I want you to notice all of those dishes on the back counter. Now, various and sundry and different one of you have had to use knives, spatulas, pots, and pans. The muffin tins have had to be used, but some of those things like the pitchers, those have not been used, okay? But it doesn't mean that they haven't been put away dirty, which is something that I have found, is that we're starting to put away dishes dirty. Can't do that, because what's it's going to attract? Mice. What else? Yeah. And that is one of those things that I just do not like in the kitchen. Okay, so either mice or roaches are something that I don't want to see in the kitchen. I don't want you to start seeing it. I don't want to start seeing it. Okay, because then we all start kind of getting that preconceived notion that, ugh, that's disgusting. Okay, so we're going to try to make sure that we wash all of this stuff up correctly before we get into our next lab. And today's lesson is really short. Okay, then what I'm going to need, okay, is for us to try to get to work on some of this stuff. We've been working on the dirty dishes from last week's lab, but then I had my culinary 2 go through the dishes and see what was going on. Then fourth block yesterday started the pegboard over there. So if you'll look back and see the pegboard has like our measuring spoons, our measuring cups, our rubber scrapers, our whisk, because that way now, instead of them falling through the washing area over there where we have the green rack, you now have a place where you can hang those up and they'll dry instead of always having to rewash them when they fall on the floor. Yeah, that is one of my creations, by the way. That was one of my brainstorms to do that. Crazy thing is this, that metal looking piece is actually not metal, that's linoleum, or a type of laminate, I guess you could say, that is on the back there. I had them screw that in place. As a matter of fact, it's shingled like a roof, so if water gets on that, it'll actually run down and not run back up under. Okay, and then at the bottom where the floor is, it's got a little lip on it where it can actually come out into the floor and not run back up underneath the wall. Okay, so the wood is protected, under the wall is protected, so it doesn't actually leach back up underneath there and rot the wall. And then of course that's made out of plastic, the pegboard is, instead of made out of wood like you see some pegboards made. So that keeps it from either rotting or rusting if it was made out of metal. And then of course we can label all of those as we need to, as we're hanging things up back there, and we're good to go. We know where things go. We know how that we can get things hung up. Okay, so getting into this idea of 3-compartment sink washing, we have started to learn some of these things, but we need to get into them pretty clear cut. So here's the things I need you to write. So if you've not titled your notes, you might want to do so. By the way, this is only 3 slides, so this is not like one of your regular classes where you're like, oh gosh, I'm writing notes for days. Okay, so I'm not really trying to put something up there where you feel like that you're writing for forever and ever and ever. Okay, a properly set up station includes, and this is something that I've not seen from you guys, and I really need to start seeing this, is an area for you to scrape away food, or for scraping food into the garbage containers, okay? Because we only have a 3-compartment sink. Now, I do have what is called, in my terms, a janitorial or garden sink, but it has not been installed yet because it's going to take some extra money to have that contractual work done. But I want that sink to be put in between our hand sink and our regular sink. our 3-compartment sink. And the reason why is because that would be a good place to rinse away a lot of stuff. Okay, because we know that in the apple stuff that we did, there was a lot of stuff that was sticky. We even had caramel, which was hard to get rid of. Okay, and then of course that does create a lot of food particle waste in our sink. What we want to do is try to get rid of that food particle waste as much as we possibly can. So in other words, I'm going to demonstrate. What I would like to see you guys do before you actually set this in the sink is to take some paper towels. You've got plenty of them here. You've got a nice rolling garbage can that you can roll it anywhere that you want to. And where these tines are dirty, you start wiping some of this stuff away with the paper towel first. Okay? And I'm going to leave some of this here so that I can demonstrate for the next class. But then this doesn't get in your dishwater. Okay? Because that makes our dishwater dirty quick. Okay? And then what I find with students is that they do not like to reach into the bottom of that sink and get that food waste out. Gloves, folks, gloves. You've got plenty of them around here. If you cannot stand to clean out the bottom of that drain in that sink, use some gloves and grab that ick that's down in the bottom of the sink and put it in the garbage can with a glove on. That way your hands aren't touching it. To me, I'm not bothered by that. Okay, I'm not bothered by the ick that is in the bottom of the sink. Drain boards. We have them on both sides. Got a drain board on one side to hold dirty dishes. We also use the top of the dishwasher. Okay, I don't like for us to get to the point where our dishes are so dirty and we have so many that I have to use a pull-up table like I did last week when I had to remove Cheyenne and Aiden's table to put more dirty dishes. Okay. Thermometer. Well, here's the problem. In this building, our hot water comes through a hot water system that is so far away from the hot water source that by the time it gets to us, it's actually cooled down a few degrees. So that hot water that we would love to have to wash dishes in is never going to reach the correct temperature. But really, in the proper way to do things, there needs to be a thermometer to measure the water temperature so that you know it's hot enough to wash the dishes in. All right, and then you need a clock or a timer, which I have a 30-second timer. Okay, that clock or timer allows employees, which you guys are kind of like the employees and I'm kind of like the boss, to time how long items have been immersed in the sanitizing solution. The third sink is the sanitizing solution. The crazy thing is, like I've told you, that is quat water. That sandy solution is what they call quat, Q-U-A-T, in the restaurant and commercial industry. That quat water can be eaten. Okay, it is safe for human consumption. That's what you use to wipe your tables down with. That's what we use in the third sink for sanitizing. Then ultimately, we allow those dishes to air dry. Okay, which gets us next to the next slide. You need to follow these procedures. This is something that I've not seen you do, but it is something that we're going to start doing, and that is that we are not cleaning and sanitizing that sink before and after we wash the dishes. Okay? I am governed just like your cafeterias are, just like your restaurants are. I'm sure even John Boy's Barbecue down there is the health department. Okay, the health department can either keep us open or they can shut us down. Even us being high school students, they expect for us to run the regulations of what we're supposed to do. At Applebee's, we had 2 criticals called upon us. The last time that we had what was called an EcoSure. The EcoSure policy is stronger than the health department. But if you can pass the EcoSure policies, then you know the health department is going to come in there with flying colors. Okay? We had 2 criticals. And one of the crazy criticals that we had was that our dishes weren't clean. Simply, our dishes were not clean. Okay? There is nothing worse than when you're getting ready to do prep and you go to find your pots and pans, prepware, Kimbrough, etc., measuring cups, measuring spoons, mixing bowls, and they're dirty. Because guess what? That means that you're going to have to wash that before you can be prepared to actually start cooking, which just puts you behind in time. Now look, in the restaurant industry, time is critical to getting your restaurant open and running. I come in at 7 a.m. on Saturdays and I start prepping. They want me to be done by 11. Why 11? Why do they want me to be done by 11 o'clock? We open at 10:30. And we have a few tricklers in, a few people, so if I'm taking 30 more minutes to finish up, they're okay with that. They want me to be done by 11, which is just 30 minutes after we open. Because they need those foods, they need those products to actually serve the customer. Why is it critical in this class that you not waste your time with dirty dishes? Why? Huh? Well, not so much for that, but how long are y'all in here?
45.
Huh? Not 45. Y'all are in here longer than that. Like an hour and 20, 25 minutes that y'all are in here. If you are having to waste your time washing dirty dishes, then you are now putting yourself behind and trying to get things done in an hour and 20, hour and 25 minutes. Okay, that's the reason why that it's critical to have clean dishes. All right, the first sink. Now, since y'all are typing in these notes, I need you to go back to that little indication of the first sink. The first sink is filled with detergent and water. So go and create a line just underneath that first sink. Okay? Go create a line just underneath that first sink. Because there's something I need to have you put in there about the first sink. Everybody go create a line. Austin, you ready to create that line? Austin, just underneath the first sink, create one more line. So go and hit enter just after that statement that says fill the third sink. Or sorry, fill the second sink. All right. Fill the first sink with detergent and water. Underneath that, you're going to enter 1 pump of detergent. 1 pump of detergent. Now look, this pre-measures. It's about 1/4 of a cup. So, Miss Sarah, you say 1 pump, but what if I go someplace else to work? What if I go to some other restaurant, some other place, and I'm asked to do a 3-compartment sink and set it up? Listen to me carefully, 1/4 of a cup. So from full suspension, if this is in the upright position, it is to press it down all the way to where it stops. It's going to give you a quarter of a cup to fill this sink to wash with. Okay? One pump. Okay? It says the second sink is filled with clean water. Well, we're fortunate in our clean water endeavors, because what do we do in the second sink? Rinse with what? What clean water? From the sprayer arm. You have a sprayer in here. Okay, so in that second sink, we don't put any water. We simply spray off all the suds with the sprayer arm and let it rinse down the sink. Okay? The third sink with water and sanitizer to the correct concentration, hot water can be used as an alternative. Well, in this one, when we're using a sanitizer, first of all, the water can't be hot. Why? Because it'll kill the chemical that creates that sanitizer. It says about the highest that water should be, I think, is like 77 degrees. Okay, so a little bit of hot, a little bit of cool, kind of a cool water mixture. Now, go underneath this third sink and hit enter before provide a clock. Provide a clock. Hit enter. Because you need to add something underneath that line about the third sink. Alright, so with this one, it's 2 pumps of sanitizer, or about a half a cup. If this is 1 pump and it's a quarter cup, if this is twice as much, then it's a half cup. Okay, half a cup, 2 pumps. You have now seen this statement about providing a clock. This will let the food handlers time how long that they've been sanitizing. You now see that statement twice. This step is critical. That sanitizing step is critical. Because even if you do leave food particles on there, you've killed the bacteria. Okay? So we got that slide in. Let's go to the last slide. Find some water. All right. Last slide. Last thing we're writing down. Rinse, scrape, or soak all items before washing. The use of that garbage can is going to be critical. The use of those paper towels is going to be critical for you to wipe all that stuff out. Why would we do that? Why would we wipe all the debris off? Why would we do that? Why would we wipe everything off? What? I mean, it does help the drain from being clogged, but what else? So your sink water is not as dirty. That's absolutely right. The more times you have to change out that sink water, listen to me carefully. If every one of y'all want to own a restaurant or work in the restaurant industry, your chemicals are one of the most expensive things that you spend on. Your chemicals are expensive. The more that you can save money on your chemicals, the better off that you are. So, if I'm using a quarter cup of detergent every single time, and I'm having to change out that sink often because there's debris and crap floating in the top of it, then I'm going to have to keep using chemicals and keep using chemicals and keep using chemicals, and that gets expensive. Okay? So use your chemicals as best as you possibly can to their fullest extent. All right, again, we clean those items in the first sink. We make sure that they are spotless before we hand them off to the rinse sink. Okay, clean them up, wash them up using that detergent solution. That's nothing more than Dawn that I have over there, but it's commercial strength. It's just a commercial strength Dawn. Okay. Rinse items in the second sink. We rinse items in with using a sprayer arm. Okay, so that we can rinse all that suds down into the sink. And then we pass it off to the third sink. That's where we sanitize items. If the hot water is used, the water should be at least 77 degrees for 30 seconds. Okay, 77 degrees, you still won't kill your chemical. Okay, and of course we can put our hands in 77 degrees because how hot are we? What's the normal temperature? 98.6. I'm always low. Always. How many of y'all are finding out that you're low when they take your temperature in the morning?
It's always different every single day. It switches between the same two.
Anybody normal? I mean, like consistently at the same temperature every day? I'm always 97.3. So I'm like, isn't that a radio station? Delilah. I don't know why, but that's just, I was like, I can't believe that I'm like always 90. I'm just consistent.
During fan camp, when it's like we get told what ours was, and mine would switch between like 99.7 and like 99.6.
So you run a little high.
Like every day, it will like switch between those two.
Yeah.
Or anything different.
Some people do. Some people run a little high. Some people run a little low. It's been interesting since this whole COVID stuff and having to take temperatures everywhere I go, every place I work, that we have this average that we find ourselves being at. Okay, air dry all items, place them upside down so that they will drain. Okay, which if you look over there, they are essentially upside down. Okay, as far as the draining is concerned, which means, I mean, all the water is going to drain out so that we can get them good and dry, air dry. Why do we not use a towel? Why do we not use a towel?
Because it just puts back on the bacteria.
Yes, ma'am. We do not use a towel. And listen to me carefully, in the restaurant industry, if you're talking about a table that a guest is sitting at, that table is supposed to air dry before you seat the next guest. Okay? So, for instance, have you ever sat down at a wet table? I hate that. Because guess what that also tells me in my mind? That sanitizing solution has not had enough time to work. So I'm just sitting in somebody else's germs. Okay, and that kind of bothers me when I think about that. Okay, but you want to make sure that you allow them to air dry. If not, that towel's thought about introducing more germs. Okay, what do you have to do tomorrow? What's going to be online for you? What kind of assignment? Reading assignment. What are you going to do with that reading assignment? Huh? We're going to read it, and then what happens with it on Monday? Yes, we're going to have an oral quiz. Means I ask the question, you write down the answer, and then I score you. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this might be a page and 3/4 of a reading assignment. 1 page and 3/4. So not a whole lot to do with that. Okay, guess what you now need to do? You now need to go over to the side where you say turn in or submit this assignment. Mark as done. This is kind of a free 100. Mark as done, a free 100. All right, now, some of you have done your evaluation of your recipe. I also need you to mark that as done. Mark that as done.